Hello, good evening everybody, and welcome to our first ever Spark by Go Studio Startup Demo Day in partnership with Plug and Play, all happening right here at Income Payments World Headquarters in beautiful, and may my hair say it, hot Atlanta, Georgia. And it is Atlanta. Don't confuse the two and put the hot Atlanta thing. Us in the perimeter, it's an Atlanta thing, all right? I am your master of ceremonies, Tony Leone, and let me just say that though we love technology here at Go Studio, it is so good to see all of your happy faces outside of a Zoom screen, and I appreciate you for not wearing sweatpants and pajama suits to this. I'm glad we all dressed for the occasion. But thank you all for joining us here tonight. If this is your first Spark event, then you are in for a treat. Spark by Go Studio is a motivational and educational series of events focusing on innovation and real-world use for cases for emerging technologies. And tonight's topic is retail of the future. So get ready to explore several cutting-edge emerging technology solutions that could impact how we soon will all shop. I will say my experience working with Income Payments and Go Studio is one that I feel like I am transported into the future every time I collaborate with them. I remember a few years back, I was hearing what seemed like novel concepts like blockchain technology and computer vision, and I was like, this is Skynet. We are in the movie Terminator, and it is real. But then, fast forward now, my mom is calling me up like, hey, you need to invest in this cryptocurrency right here. I really like their blockchain, their end-to-end encryptions. I'm like, okay, so the future is not so frightening. But we're here now, and like I said, every time I work with them, and I'm peering into that window. But I will say, once we start making self-replicating robots with human exoskeletons, I'm out, all right? Shortly, we are going to be joined by an esteemed panel of experts from across the retail landscape to discuss this fascinating subject, after which teams from 3 emerging technology startups will take the stage and present their retail of the future product demos. I'm psyched to see what the future looks like, but before we get going here, I'd like to share some more background information on our host, Go Studio, and Plug and Play. So some of you may be thinking, well, what is Go Studio? Go Studio is Income Payments' in-house innovation center and consultancy that brings a lean startup model and enterprise-level assets together to solve their clients' unique challenges. Go Studio has a diverse team of highly skilled professionals along with a host of innovation tools focusing on emerging technology solutions for today, tomorrow, and the future. As markets and strategies evolve, Go Studio delivers world-class service and support to help grow a client's business and meet their consumers' needs. Unaware of Income Payments? You're not alone. It's okay. Income Payments is a global leader in innovative payments technology. Leveraging dynamic technology and proven expertise, Income Payments delivers enhanced end-to-end payment platforms and emerging financial technology solutions that help businesses grow across a world range of industries, including retail, healthcare, tolling and transit, lottery, incentives, mobile payments, and financial services. With more than 30 years of experience, over 500,000 points of distribution, and over 417 global patents, a presence in more than 30 countries as well, Income Payments creates seamless and valuable commerce experiences across the globe. All right, next I would like to introduce to you Nate Hinman, Director of Enterprise Tech, who will tell you a little bit more about Plug and Play.
Thank you very much, Tony, and way to put no pressure on me. I'm not a professional MC, so thank you very much, everyone, for having me here today. My name's Nate Hinman. I'm Senior Director of our Enterprise Technology Program at Plug and Play. I'm also spearheading our initiative to open an office here in Atlanta, along with Jessica Vargas. Jessica, wave your hand. The wonderful Jessica Vargas. I'm sure most of you have met her. And if you're not familiar with Plug and Play, we are a global innovation platform helping Fortune 1000s and startups connect, invest in one another, and move innovation forward. There are 3 main pillars to our program. We run accelerator programs. We run 60 programs per year across 40 different cities. In addition to that, we run corporate innovation services. So we're working with Fortune 1000s to help them identify, evaluate, and adopt early-stage technologies. And we also have a venture capital team that invests in early-stage technologies as well as is a subject matter expert for our corporate partners. All three of these things come together to form our ecosystem. We have 535 Fortune 1000 partners. We have over 19 industry-specific accelerator programs, and we have over 120 investment professionals on our team and co-invest with over 200 VCs around the world. When it comes to our innovation programs, there's really no industry that we don't have a program for. We're really in the B2B space. Every company in this room, I think we have a program for you. And our goal in these programs is to help you identify disruptive technology for your industry. Our programs are 100% equity free for our startups, so we don't require any equity. There's no revenue share model when we introduce them to a partner of ours and they find a new $1 million ARR customer. The reason for that is we work with Fortune 1000s, and their initiatives don't always align with startups in the seed stage. So oftentimes, for example, folks within the cybersecurity space will be required to be working with companies that have had $10 million on their balance sheet. So by not requiring equity, we can get more companies in our program and help them with their journeys. When it comes to our corporate network, so we work with 535 Fortune 1000s around the world. Within Atlanta, we work with at least 7. And so we're very excited to be opening a new location here to localize services for our partners, as well as tap into the amazing network around us. So in addition to that, we'd like to find the next Greenloft, Calendly, or SalesLoft, Calendly, or Greenlight, and find the next unicorn here in Atlanta. And obviously continue building our network. So if you look at our network here, we have 7 partners that have headquarters here in Atlanta. These other companies we have great relationships with and we've been working with for the past few years. On the other side, we're working with universities. We're trying to tap into Georgia Tech, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, Emory, and their entrepreneurship programs and help their entrepreneurs get funding, access to capital, and access to co-working space and business development opportunities. On top of that, we're also working with investors across Atlanta and across the world. So helping bring additional investment to Atlanta and investing in the communities here. So very excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me. I'm over my time now, so off to the next. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nate. I appreciate you have all the time in the world, man. I'm here for you. For the last couple of years, Go Studio has been focused on retail of the future. Whether in our research and development, partnerships with Kennesaw State University, or partner projects, based on that experience, the studio thought that it made sense to explore this topic further in this Spark event. Retail has had its share of challenges recently, but has also seen some very interesting uses for emerging technologies and consumer shifts, whether in contactless payments or online shopping. So, without further ado, let's take a deep dive into retail of the future. Everyone ready? Okay, so introducing this esteemed panelist, please join me in giving a very warm Spark welcome to these panelists. First up, we have Jay Amburkar, MD, Retail Industry at Accenture. Followed up is Will Decker, Head of Brand and Retail at Plug & Play. Billy Harbison, Director of Innovation at Go Studio. And Vikan Verma, Vice President, Software Engineering at Incom Payments. Thank you guys for joining me here. Now, as they are getting seated and before we get started, let me just add that we will have time for questions from the audience. So just wait till the end of the panel discussion here and hold on to those queries. We will get to them, I promise. Just make your way when we are ready for those questions to the nearest aisle towards you, and we will find you. But all right, let us kick off this discussion with our theme here, Retail of the Future. So for our first question, what do you guys see as the biggest challenges for retail in the next 3 to 10 years?
Who first?
I think she is the most, we should let women go first.
I'm happy to start. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate how you just dished that to the lady here. Of course, ladies first, might as well.
So I'm happy to be here, and that's an excellent question. So for the retailers, none of our conversations with any of the C-suite executives today is complete without talking about supply chain and talent and digital acceleration. So let's just unpack that a little bit, right? So when it comes to supply chain, COVID exposed to us the fragility of supply chain, right? And sometimes when we say supply chain, it can occur like it's such a catch-all phrase. But when you actually look at scenarios like the toilet paper frenzy we saw during the pandemic, or when the birthday gift that you ordered for your daughter doesn't show up on time, it really becomes a customer experience issue. It becomes a customer satisfaction issue. So I think building a resilient supply chain is foundational to be able to deliver in the omni-channel world. So that's kind of one, right? And then talent, again, employee experience is directly proportional to customer experience. With increasing labor cost, increasing labor shortages, to attract, retain, and train talent is definitely top of mind. Digital acceleration, and study by Accenture shows that COVID accelerated digital adoption by at least 5 years. And some of the retailers who are not digital first are having to pivot and quickly catch up, right? So how do they go from doing this catch up to developing digital capabilities and products that spans across digital, physical, social? I think that's going to be a challenge, but also a place where there are a lot of opportunities.
Wow, I appreciate that very thorough answer. Good luck following that up, Vikanand, all right?
Yeah, so it's a very good insights into what exactly COVID did for us and the stuff that we are seeing. I am hoping in 3 to 5 years from now, or even beyond, right? We pick back up where we left around AI and your computer vision, where you are able to actually walk into the store and have a frictionless checkout, right? In 3 to 5 years, I'm hoping that's where we are. People are back into the store. The stores are looking pretty empty. So hopefully people are coming back in there and having that experience. The fact that you can walk into the store, pick up stuff, have a planogram of the store and figure out, hey, where did the stuff go missing from? Like, those are the areas which I would see retail should be focused in next couple of years.
I'm actually, I appreciate you brought up computer vision. That was actually one of the topics I wanted to bring up here. So let's just dive into that. It looks like computer vision is one of those technologies that is going to jumpstart, as it seems like it will, the new strategy of retail. So I'm curious, what do you think that are some of the best consumer-centric cases here? And like, I don't know for me, but do you feel like there might be some impeding on people's privacy when it comes to those shopping experiences? Care to elaborate, anybody else?
I think so. I think computer vision for retail is really interesting in that it gives us a way to remove friction. And that's really what the consumer is looking for. They're looking for ways to remove friction, to get in, get out quicker, get the products they want quicker. We were doing some experiments, and I called my 19-year-old daughter, who's a sophomore at UGA, and I said, if you could get your Starbucks without having to speak with anybody, would you be willing to share a selfie? And she said, absolutely, I've got one ready to go. She said, I wouldn't share the one that, I wouldn't take the picture in the morning, but I'd have one staged ready to go. And so I think it's a trade-off with privacy. Our kids are already sharing way more of themselves than we're comfortable with. But if they get something of value in return, then I think that they're going to be willing to do that. I think the privacy aspect is one that it has to be consumer opt-in and not just the retailer take. But I do think that there are a lot of ways that retailers, both on the consumer-facing and on the operational side, can use computer vision to really remove a lot of friction from the entire retail ecosystem.
Valid point. It seems like there is, like you said, a nice give and take. So it's not so much of a tug of war, but it is something kind of like we were saying before, Jay, where it's like we had this supply chain shortage. We had people, shopping online. And you're like, how do you fill in that space? Well, you're going to fill it in by, convenience of, time. So you're not having to wait necessarily for those things. If we can jumpstart with things like computer vision, I appreciate that.
If I may add. So I think we need to think more about responsible AI, right? We need to ask, how might we, with utmost integrity, create value in exchange for the data that consumers are sharing with us? When we start with that question, we will automatically come to the right use cases and the right areas to focus, right? Of course, there are emerging use cases like queuing theory, queue management, and spatial optimization, how to better control inventory. So there are a lot of interesting computer vision use cases, but I think the right place to start is responsible AI.
I can definitely attest to that, given my Skynet joke earlier in the show. But again, picking up on that note here, these are all great points, but there is a segment of the population that I think we can all think of that are not going to adapt to this technology very well, right? Of course, we are talking about some of the older generations. How do you embrace that technology from a consumer standpoint, right, without disenfranchising those older folks, our grandmas and grandpas out there?
So I think that's a good point and question to ask when you think about different groups that are either underserved or don't have access to certain technology and marketplaces. So I think having more seamless access to commerce, to experience brands, to purchase them is going to be huge, while at the same time limiting some of the consumerism that just happens in our supply chain and value chains right now, creating a little bit more sustainable and circular models. To do that, I think you need to tap into a lot of technology we've discussed already, and some automation happening not just in computer vision at the point of sale, but throughout the whole value chain, as well as moving some of those supply chains closer to where the consumers are. So if you've got shorter markets, if you think about going to the farmer's market and buying things that are locally made, that'll have a much more sustainable impact on our commerce in general. And I think it also has a lot of ripe opportunities for innovation for local businesses. So having more accessibility, sustainability, and of course, I think going back to some of the challenges that we'll face in the future, definitely not going to be the same challenges we're facing today. So having ecosystems like this is going to be incredibly important.
So it seems like you're pulling up blockchain as one of those examples. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit specifically here when you're looking at cryptocurrency, right? It has received some pretty bad press lately over the last couple of years. I don't know if anybody was trying to buy the dip. I don't know if it really worked out. I hope it did for you. But how do you think blockchain is impacting retail outside of those payments, and how? And that's for the panel as well.
Yeah, so I'll build on that just real quickly too, because blockchain plays into so many different areas and how you define it. I think lately within retail and thinking about future, it kind of parlays into this conversation of the metaverse and virtual reality and augmented reality, and how blockchain created NFTs and wallets, and this ecosystem plays with different experiences. So when it comes to retail, what I like to think is how these experiences augment the real world. How can you have something in our IRL be helped through the URL, and vice versa? So to do that, you need to create great experiences, because who knows where people are going to be spending their time and their money across these various universes and metaverses. How do you create great experiences so that people have things that can identify them that allow them to have great in-person experiences and rewards?
I think that's interesting, because I think in the metaverse, you brought metaverse up, I think we're in the AOL and CompuServe phase of the metaverse. It's a lot of walled gardens in the respect that there's not a lot of trust between those companies to share data, to share customers. And where blockchain really can shine is the glue between companies that don't have explicit trust. And so we could see some opportunities there in blockchain to tie some of these metaverse experiences together, where there wouldn't have been a possibility to link one experience with another, an AR with a VR, a Meta with an HTC.
Yeah. At Accenture, we see metaverse as a continuum, right? It's an extension of how the usage of internet is evolving. It's just not about like VR headset or AR or WebXR or 3D. It's a combination of all these technologies and how it's going to be accessed from different touch points. I want to go back to the inclusion aspect, because I think with metaverse, we have the opportunity to actually start with an inclusion centric technology build approach. Because today we look at the websites, and only 3% of the top million websites are fully accessible. So we can actually start right with metaverse. We can have wheelchairs and facial shapes and types for avatars that are much more inclusive. We don't want to repeat some of the mistakes that we did in the past, right? We have to go from unconscious exclusion to a more conscious inclusion when it comes to emerging technologies.
So I'm curious here, what do you consider to be the metaverse? And how is that, I see you're pointing a lot of inclusion aspects in trying to do that from the ground up. I feel like that's a very valiant effort. But how do you think that is going to trickle down and really impact society at large as they start to adapt more things in the metaverse, whatever the metaverse might be?
I think that's an interesting question, right? Overall, you need to figure out what exactly is the metaverse, right? Anything that you talk about AR, VR, then XR, then the fact that there are so many sensors being developed. I think one thing I can say what metaverse is not is certain social media companies, right? It's not just limited to there. There are people who are coming up in this ecosystem. There are things that are happening within this ecosystem that are allowing the metaverse to be built out. And as people are adopting to it, as people adopted computers earlier, the very similar thing is going to end up happening for metaverse too, where you start seeing a lot of technology being spent, right? The technology is basically finding the problems that Jay was saying earlier, and then finding solutions for those, right? As people adopt to it, as you see the signal that, yes, this is the technology that you want to go behind, you're going to see more and more force and investments go behind those kind of technologies.
Yeah, I would just add to that, right? To me, metaverse is not about solving an actual immediate obvious problem, because if we remember social media from its inception days, it did not come to solve for an actual pain point. None of us were up at night thinking what status message should I be putting on my Instagram, or it didn't even have a real value proposition or a business case. But what it had become is an opportunity to create and activate products and services and become like a large social media economy. And metaverse has the opportunity to do the same, right? It is going to become the foundation upon which many innovations and products and services are going to be activated. That is going to lead to more problems, and we are going to solve for it. And I think it's going to evolve. Companies realize this. I think you can like metaverse, you can be a skeptic, you can not like metaverse, but you just can't ignore it.
So you're touching on something that I feel like, as a public consumer myself of a lot of these social media aspects, the public's perception of some of these big name social media outlets has been, a little sour taste to it, especially as of late. So, and then you add in privacy concerns with that. So how do you see this impacting social commerce and the creator economy at large?
Creator economy at large, I think, is actually a very cool thing. When you think about, we talk a little about inclusion and the future of marketplaces. When you think about our own ability to work and do gig economy and kind of have our own way to create an identity and make some money, the creator economy right now, not everything's created equal. It's a very, very small top. There's a very few number of earners that are earning most of the money. So being able to have technology and marketplaces and other ways for us to create what we want to and share that with others and have a commerce interaction is going to be huge. So I think that's going to be a real great way to have ways for us to make things, content or otherwise, monetize those, and have that provide some sort of fulfillment, some type of living. And I think it's a great equalizer and a really, really interesting thing to pay attention to.
I think that's an interesting point, that creator economy in the very small number of creators that are actually making money, which means there are people looking for various other channels in the creator economy to make the money, which means a lot of the digital experiences become ephemeral, and the companies that are operationalized on one channel or two channels start to lose their foothold as the TikTok economy starts to drive digital in all kinds of unplanned and unexpected directions, because suddenly a new app pops up and it's hot, and a lot of people drive to that and then then commerce, retail, they're like, oh no, I don't know how to do that, and I've got to go figure it out. 9 months later, after I've gone through my planning cycle and my budget cycle, I've got an app on that, and then that ephemeral experience is over. And I think you mentioned at the very beginning that acceleration of digital, I think that's very true. And the companies that have operationalized on their one app and their one channel in social, they're going to struggle as digital continues to accelerate.
I just want to add that, right? So creator economy is just going to get help more and more from the technology, the innovations that we are doing, right? The gap between the creator and the consumer is where most of the money was being made, where the winner takes all, right? Means the creator creates something, it's like, hey, I take this particular thing and I then distribute it. And then the middleman takes all the money. The creator economy, like what we are seeing now on TikTok and Facebook and so many other things, that gap is shrinking, right? Most of the money is actually going to the creator, which allows the creator now to go and innovate something bigger, better. So you're going to see more innovation coming out just because of that, the shortening of the cycle.
So one last question here, and to kind of bring it back to retail, we're talking about the creator economy, we're talking about the metaverse and how those two really intersect. How do you think that that's going to change the in-store behavior when it comes to retail purchases? And I don't know if I want a soundbite from each of you, but basically, how do we prevent that from being something that's less interpersonal and it still brings a community reaction from when I'm making my purchase to something that isn't just, hey, I want to just grab and go from my Starbucks?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, when we talk about, in-store and online, we always talk about like one replacing the other, right? But that's not what the industry is witnessing. We are witnessing that both can coexist, and it's going to operate in conjunction to create seamless experiences, right? So, and the trick is not to try to replicate all the online experiences in-store, right? There are some things that are unique to that in-store experience, right? For large brick and mortar retailers, having that physical store presence could be a huge competitive advantage, right? So, how do you create, those in-store experiences that cannot be replicated online? It's going to continue to drive traffic. It's going to drive, the engagement, and that's kind of where we see the, omni-channel commerce taking shape with the in-store and online coexisting.
Billy, you're nodding. Do you have a quick soundbite for us here?
I do. I think that we've been planogramming shelves for thousands of years, and I think the online, we don't have this sense of context that you stand in front of a shelf, and whether or not it was planned to drive you to a specific product or not, you get a sense of importance by the way things are placed on a shelf. And we don't have that exact same experience online. We also don't have the you may also like from online in the real world. So I completely agree with you that the fusing of the two, with the fusing of virtual information in the physical and some of the physical information back to the virtual, show me this product in its exact bay, but I'm looking at it on a web page, so I can get the sense of space, I can get the sense of context and importance, and drive to a better decision.
Can I do a soundbite
Quick
too?
soundbite, yeah, absolutely.
Great soundbite, thank you. I think it's simple as far as the answer. Getting there is going to be hard. But commerce is about human-to-human transactions, right? It's this personal thing, and it's knowing who the other person is. It's just going to be enabled by technology, and it's going to happen everywhere.
All right. Well, that's perfect panel right here. So now we're going to take some questions from the audience here. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask one or all of our panelists that we have here, just raise your hand and make your way towards your nearest aisle, and we have some microphones on either end of the theater here to ask your question. Not all at once. All right. Do we have a question out there?
I have no questions. Wow. Were we so clear?
Thanks, guys, for the amazing panel. One question I had was just on regulatory changes. Are there any regulatory changes that you think are getting in the way of commerce, cross-border commerce, and any of those that specifically stand out to you?
Oh, so I'll go first, thinking about it. But certainly the global geopolitical changes over the past several years have been a super challenge. So you've seen a lot more focus on local markets, right? And a lot more difficulty in international shipping. You're dealing with things like customs and changing rules there. So there's actually startups in that space that are trying to help international shipping be managed a little bit more effectively and to build in some more flexibility. Within the US, you mentioned like interstate. I mean, certainly there's some, I think we will see things like in Europe around loot boxes. We've talked a little bit about metaverse. So digital native currencies and the management of those marketplaces, I think, will continue to evolve and be really important. I mean, that's real value exchange, but we'll see. Otherwise, I think it's up to us as consumers to also vote with our dollars and say kind of what's important there.
Right, we have a question right here in the audience.
Oh, thanks. So let me ask a couple of questions, maybe not so close. You spoke about digital acceleration, but I think Shopify laying off 1,000 people told us that, and specifically the CEO told us that digital acceleration was artificial during COVID. So what's the realistic growth arc? And along those lines, like everybody's very bullish on this, right? And on this panel, which of course, but where's the contrarian voice, right? You talked about Web3 being a walled garden, but that drags consumer adoption to a massive extent. You talked about the commerce experience being human to human, but it's really human to Amazon, right? There's not a lot, you know. Listen, don't get me wrong. Like you go in and you shop and you buy, but in terms of the macro sense, human to human, what is the real acceleration curve to the experience, right? And I think that's the question across everything that, you know, I'm kind of throwing rocks a little bit, to be fair, but what's the real acceleration curve right now? You talk about sustainable supply chain, which happens to be my particular bailiwick, but like we aren't really moving to a sustainable supply chain. We talk about it every time there's a macro disruption, right? We talked about it after Sendai. We talked about it, right? We're talking about it now because of COVID, but we're not moving production closer to markets of consumption, which is the, you know, kind of industry term for this. So.
Yeah,
you're the
question.
experts.
What does that acceleration curve look like across the market?
So 83% folks have to adopt to using online channels during COVID. It was not a choice. They had to use the platforms because that was the only way to engage for some of those services and products that they needed. And most of what you're saying is true. And when you think about digital acceleration, in my mind, it starts with the discovery process, right? So wherever in the buyer's journey, the completion of the purchase is happening might be, you know, different, but discovery is happening mostly online, right? So they're discovering the product on Instagram, or they're discovering it on TikTok, and then they're reading about it on Meta, or they're reading about it some more on Quora or Reddit. And then finally, you know, they want to talk to their peers, they want to see the peer reviews, and then they want to make sure there is a story to tell about that product online, and then they're completing their purchase, whether it's in-store or online. So I think that is the spot where I see the majority of digital acceleration is happening, and then it's kind of, you know, starting to percolate through the buyer's journey.
I can add something over there. So when you look at Amazon, right, when you go and purchase something from Amazon, generally we treat it as Amazon is like a Best Buy, a store that you walk in and you walk out, right? But in reality, if you start peeling under Amazon, right, stop being the consumer, start being the provider in Amazon, you'll realize Amazon by itself is a platform, right? It has got so many different things that it is innovating on. There was a store that Amazon unveiled a couple of years ago where you can just walk in, walk out with the hottest items that Amazon is selling. These are the experiences that are available for everyday users, and technologies are making this even more, like you can have an entry into the market. We talked about local and global. Those are the kind of experiences you will see happen because the price of technology is keeping on coming down. And when you see that, that's the thing that Amazon is fighting against, saying, hey, we don't want anybody else to enter into this market, but everybody else is investing and innovating, and that's where you see the creator economy coming in, right? Why do I need to go through Amazon? Why do I need to go through Facebook? Is there another platform that's available for you where you can just directly have that conversation?
There's an interesting intersection between creator economy, local, and circular economy, in that I've seen an interesting trend that a lot of the digital acceleration is happening in recognizing the local vendors, the farmers market. There's a TikTok with 34 million views, and it's a dry goods refillery, like, you take your container and you get your coffee beans, and they don't have any plastic. And so there are these types of experiences that are being created because every product that is a commodity ultimately turns into an experience. And through the pandemic, I think we've realized that just ordering stuff from Amazon, while it's convenient, there's something beyond that. So there's an experience to be had that I can't get just by clicking and having things show up at my door. So it's not moving fast. Obviously, you asked about the acceleration curve. I don't think it's fast, but I think that there is an avenue and a trend happening where we don't have phone books anymore. We can't look up the guy who sells coffee beans locally, but now social has given us an avenue to identify who those people are and amplify those voices inside of the creator economy.
And look, if I could time the acceleration curve, it'd be great. I'll share it with you. We'll take our millions, we'll buy an island, or we'll give back to the community here. For my 2 cents, it's going to be about the killer app, right? So I plug and play invest in some impact mission-led companies and startups. And we talk to them about their growth and their adoption and their accelerator curves. And while they're very tied to their mission and building communities, when you come down to that acceleration, it's about having a better product, having a better experience. It's the things on the other side of the table, the consumer, and what matters to them, and you're giving them something better. So if it's a convenience thing, is it more convenient? You might have to work with some of the incredible startups we see here today for your own marketplace and business if you want to change things up, because you're going to have to beat Amazon at their own game. Or if you're in a different experience category, you're going to have to just find another way to go out there and do something new that's better. So it's tough.
Seems like we have room for one more question here.
It's great. I love the conversation. Dan McMorris with the Provenance Chain Network. Billy, you talked about trust earlier. And I know we've had regulatory oversight in terms of some friction points and maybe supply chain, and we're talking about access to the products. I'm curious if the panel has any insight on another aspect about the retail transaction, which is trust. And it seems like consumers have just lost trust. And so you talk about building a better app. What about, I would love to hear perspective on a more complete app or information that consumers may need to make consumer decisions in terms of the quality of the products or the quality of the companies behind that. And can this technology be a platform to deliver that, to remove that level of friction?
We have one person who wants to take that answer.
Sure, transparency, man.
Again, responsible AI, like I said, we have to start with removing the bias. We have to start with algorithmic, systemic way of removing opportunities to lose trust. We have to create transparency in the process very, very early on. And step one is to build that trust and transparency, right? And then on top of that, we can activate a lot of digital experiences. We can activate a killer app. We can, do metaverse. We can do everything. But, having that trust, because like I said, 83% of global audience don't believe that, companies are using AI in the right way. And they want to, be assured that, their data that they're giving in exchange is being utilized for the right things, and they want to, have that trust and transparency throughout the process.
All right, this was a great discussion, great question as well. And I got to say, I really do appreciate our panelists here for not shying away from some of these harder questions at all. So if we could all give them a round of applause, and thank you for their time. Let's hear it for them. Thank you all, each one of you. I feel like we could have talked all night about this and gone deep. So again, I appreciate you all sharing your time with us. But now, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to our demos. All right, so our first startup on the day for the Spark Demo Day docket is Daniel Cage from SpeedChain. Let's welcome Daniel here, founder of SpeedChain and is the CEO.
Think of your business processed a payment transaction. How sure were you that your data was secure? How easy was the process? How much did that transaction actually cost your business? Every day, millions of commercial transactions are made with limited visibility and transparency between payer and receiver. Not anymore. With SpeedChain, the best way to securely send and receive commercial payments. SpeedChain is an easy-to-use cloud-native platform that makes moving money between payers and receivers easy, visible, and secure, all at a lower cost. SpeedChain members are connected with each other on a secure data platform, eliminating legacy third parties and the cost and risk that comes with them. We save our members millions by preventing fraud related to business email compromise, tracking payments to flag malicious activity, and preventing duplicate payments and errors. Our members benefit from the power of a true platform, securing their data, sending and receiving payments, tracking transactions in real time, capturing data for analytics, utilizing smart contracts, and communicating securely in one easy-to-use place. So why have business and government agencies process billions of dollars on our platform? It's simple. SpeedChain is more secure, costs less, and is easy to use. Try a free demo today and see how SpeedChain can work for you.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Hi, Daniel Cage. I'm the CEO of SpeedChain. And that was a little bit of a detail on what SpeedChain is. We are a data platform, and we service our customers, which we call members. And our members are businesses and government. And so they use our platform to communicate, transact, pay more efficiently, more securely. So there are tons of components to that. But the key is that data and payments must move together. And today they don't in the B2B world. And there are a lot of things to unpack, but with the time we have tonight, wanted to just answer really one question. Why is B2B commerce taking longer to migrate than B2C did? Because we see a lot of innovation in the B2C space, but it's coming slower in the B2B. And to talk about that, the first thing is to look at the market, right? So last year, the FBI said $1.9 billion was stolen due to BEC compromise. So business email compromise, 3 ways. You either pretend you're a vendor that is not a vendor, you doctor an invoice, or there's somebody in a finance team inside or outside of a vendor company that's trying to reroute a payment. So $2 billion last year occurred in 21 in the US alone. 80% of companies asked said that there was either an attempted or successful payment fraud on their company. But at the same time, 70% of companies are digitizing their B2B payments. Finally, 70% of companies also say that their relationships with their vendors are stressed because of bad invoice management and bad payments. And so the panel just now was talking about establishing trust between a company and their customers. What we do is establish trust between companies and companies, or governments and their disbursement partners as well. So to get into that, what does it look like if data and payments travel together? What are the benefits of that if we were successful doing that? Well, first off, better security, better data visibility. They just were talking about transparency. The same problem exists for companies, right? And then finally, better communication. So do you have a dedicated platform in which you can communicate with your counterparties that's not vulnerable to BEC or other types of communication fraud? So one of the ways, there are a lot of things that go into digitization. We're asked a lot about smart contracts, so today we decided to delve into one of those components of an overall platform that will solve a lot of these issues. So the first one, a good place to start is Harvard Business Review did a very easy kind of side-by-side. So on the left-hand side, you have conventional record keeping on a supply chain payment. On the right side, you have a Web3 or blockchain. The real takeaways on this is kind of busy, but the takeaway is on the left, you have ledgering that's going on all stakeholders, right? So you have a bank that loaned the money. You have a supplier that's creating goods. You have a merchant that's selling them. They're all ledgering a transaction throughout the supply chain, right? But what you see is there's blind spots along the way. They're ledgering themselves. Sometimes 2 of them will see them, sometimes only 1, but very rarely 3. But on the right-hand side, you see a blockchain, either a contract or a block is being created each way along the supply chain. And what you get at the bottom of the right-hand corner is a full ledger of the transaction. So that is awesome. So why aren't all companies using this? Full transparency for all stakeholders in the supply chain by implementing a smart contract in the middle of what we would normally see as a fairly simple, straightforward supply chain payment. The reason why is because it's really hard. The lifecycle management of a smart contract is complex because you have to answer as a company a lot of questions about how to implement, compile, manage a smart contract. What makes it trickier is that not only do you have to answer that question, you have to go to your vendor community and have them agree on which blockchain you're using, on how you're compiling your contracts, how you're doing risk management, how you're doing mitigation or changes to orders or contracts. So platform companies like SpeedChain and others that are solving some of these issues are creating a much more easy pre-compiled lifecycle management solutions, so you and your vendors, or companies and their vendors, can easily implement and actually use smart contracts. So the things that you'd use it for is multi-party transactions. Or if you wanted to implement dynamic discounting into a contract, you're not going to go and decide which blockchain to use, who's going to manage and mitigate different changes to the orders. What you're going to do is have recipes and have a user interface that's easy to implement. And ultimately, just like the conversations around the metaverse and some other things, ultimately, you may not even know you're using pieces of smart contracts to add either security or functionality or efficiency into a B2B transaction. So like this is only one component, though, of what really will move B2B to migrate over to digital. It's a $28 trillion B2B market in the US and has seen much less innovation, as I said before, than B2C. What's really ultimately needed is a hybrid data platform. And so at SpeedChain, this is our data platform. There are components to it. One of them is smart contracts that we just covered in a little more detail. But really what you need is an ecosystem of known members. You need security that's underlying the way you communicate, the way you transact. You need a platform communication that drives that, whether that's controlled chat or whether that's what we call speed view, which is if you customize what data you want to see on your mobile device and when, making it easier to pay. You have to have payments. And one of the things about payments is almost every company will not flip a switch and say, we're now fully digitized. It will be a payment spread over payment modalities. So that could include, and it does include, virtual cards, check, ACH, wire, and then ultimately stablecoin and other types of currencies. And that will drive innovation because the path of innovation will be at the speed of each enterprise, each government agency, not everybody flipping the switch at once. And so this drives what really will become B2C migration to digital. A picture like this, or very similar to, depending on which platform, will have to include these components. So what we want to finish up on is fun to look at a picture, but what does it mean in real life and how does it affect commerce? And so we decided to end on a couple use cases from folks that use the platform that we're kind of proud to talk about that came up this year. So 2 use cases, one's on the private side and one's in our public disbursement side. Number 1, we had a retail/manufacturer, does around $200 million in payables. They had just been nailed by a BEC for a big number and had a payment rerouted, could not get it back. And they wanted to transition to a digitized finance team, reducing fraud, creating new revenue through vCard, doing some other things to increase the efficiency of their workflow. And so happy to report that a year later, the platform that you just saw stopped over $5 million, one company, over $5 million in duplicate and error payments. It stopped another BEC attack, and they were able to drive more revenue through different sorts of payment methods. vCard was driving some rebate revenue for them. I think probably what we're most proud of this year is we were asked to help distribute federal aid through a state agency after COVID. And initially wanted to get $700 million out the door. And it was, the applicants were, it was to help both utility payments and rent payments for folks that were adversely affected from COVID. The problem was, applicants apply and are approved, the money goes out, it's paid to utilities and property owners that have never received funds this way before. because it's on behalf of an applicant, but it's coming through a state agency. So what do you do? You create a new data platform that ties in reconciliation in multiple systems and can be then audited, tracked, reconciled through that, and happy to report that 15 months later, we're still at it. It's gone up to 1.6 billion, I think at this point, to over 250,000 different applicants have gotten paid after it. So these are just some of the components to what these platforms can do and how trust is ultimately created and then will ultimately use programmable B2B payments to help that migration from traditional payments over to digital. So with that, I'll throw it back to Tony or open it up for Q&A.
You took the words right from me. Anybody
There you go.
have questions for Speed Chain, just raise your hand and make your way to the end of the aisle. We'll be right there with you. In the meantime, while they're doing that, how has some of the early adoption been for some of these larger companies? I'm sure that if it's tried and true before, why would they want to receive it?
So I think companies typically will make decisions for two reasons. Either they're innovative, the mindset's innovative, and they want to move forward, or they are trying to avoid fraud or trying to protect something. So both of those are reasons why you'd adopt faster than not. Otherwise, usually the bigger, so we focus on mid-market and then what I would call mid-market to big mid-market to small enterprise. So we're kind of on the high end of mid-market. And those are companies that will typically have a division that they'll try it. So, and then they'll say, man, I just was able to streamline workflow.
Yeah.
I was able to, they'll either have a fraud that was either caught early or avoid it.
But they have a model that they can work with within their own company.
Absolutely, and they can do that, yeah.
Perfect. I have a question right here on the far end. Oh, look at that. Boom.
At least we're doing well, Tony.
Right, you're doing great. We do have a question over here to the left.
Yeah.
Daniel, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
Well, the question is about adoption again. So my view is that adoption is easier for startups in the blockchain space, and we've seen that they're the leaders, and not enterprise or larger incumbent enterprises or even government organizations. You have entered that market successfully. So the question is, what obstacles or hurdles do they have to jump to actually adopt this?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, the easiest one certainly is more use cases, right? So the more successful use cases that somebody that's a champion internally can then sell within that company is obviously going to help us. It's going to help them. And then also finding, we always say finding a single. So if you're selling into the bigger enterprise, oftentimes they'll say, well, we could, as we all say too many times, boil the ocean inside my enterprise. And we almost urge them to say, hey, what's a single we can hit with you? Show in one department or one region, let's say, that we can make a really effective difference, and then they can sell that internally. And I think that's one way to, that's an effective way to do that. I think in the government space, certainly, oftentimes it is the chicken or the egg, where if there's new innovative technology, well, where have you implemented it before? And I think cracking those initial programs or the first few really are important because they obviously have to prove it, to their internal constituents too. So.
All right, we have a second question right here.
Daniel, Tommy, Marshall, Georgia FinTech Academy.
Hi, Tom.
From a technical standpoint, as you were showing the speed chain system, like all those components, it struck me like, okay, there's technology that does all of that. MongoDB, internet, private network, other database structures that could perform what a smart contract does.
Right.
Can you say more about the chain part and how that's being technically enabled and why it's better than putting all those other technical pieces together?
Yes. Probably a longer conversation, but certainly. So one of the things when you look at a smart contract by itself, or when you look at, let's say, secure platform communication on its own, it's really the uniqueness of platforms is how easy is it to implement, how are those components actually being utilized to actually benefit a company's objectives. And so when you look at a platform, it is really around, there can be things that on its own can be replicated, but it's really about how you put those things together and track and secure and implement. Because it's all about, and everybody in this room knows, it's all about execution at the end of the day. So what I would say is, and we don't have time to get really into the deep of it, is there are some things that replicable, certainly, but then there are a number of technologies on that platform anyway that are proprietary or unique, but it's really the magic is in how you execute it and create programmable, secure communication and transactions within the platform. And I think that's kind of the story of every company that's scaled.
All right, well, we appreciate the time.
All right.
We appreciate the questions. Give it up one more time for SpeedChain.
Thank you.
Of course. Next up is Hayden Barch from Dorobots. Welcome, sir. So Hayden is a super talent robotics system engineer and Georgia Tech alum who's going to demonstrate Dorobots' AI-powered robotic solutions for logistics and e-commerce. All right, let's throw it over to Hayden.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hayden Barch. I'm a robotic systems engineer with Dorobot. I wanted to thank Incom, Go Studio, and Plug and Play for hosting us. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you all about the exciting work that we're doing at Dorobot. So Dorobot is a multinational robotics and AI company based out of Atlanta. Our focus is on creating resilient robotic solutions for the retail and logistics industry. With our strategically placed offices, we're currently servicing companies in over 10 countries with operations from mail sorting and order fulfillment to packaging. Our customers are working with some of the most experienced and innovative people in the industry. Our team consists of top scientists and PhDs, as well as a handful of former UPS executives. And this expertise has given us a massive head start in servicing the industry. So Dorobot's turnkey systems can boost productivity in 4 main areas of warehouse operation. We provide solutions for sorting, palletizing and depalletizing, inducting, and a wide range of mobile solutions. The Dora sorter is an incredibly unique solution. With our conveyor belt end effector, we're able to pick up any item regardless of shape or material and deposit it into the container of your choice. We can do this all while maintaining throughput of over 1,000 units per hour. This is one of the fastest robots on the market. We're actually overclocking it. Fanuc didn't think that we could push the robot this fast, but we proved them wrong. We recognize that floor space is precious, so we design custom infrastructure that minimizes the system's footprint. Here, you can see how we utilize vertical space to sort directly into mail bags. To prevent idle time, we're also monitoring the volume in each destination and alerting the operator as soon as the bag is full. Sort to Gaylord solution is something used very frequently in retail and e-commerce. It enables the customer to reduce missorts and quickly sort packages based off of the carrier and service level. The end effector is adept at sorting anything from poly bags of apparel to small cosmetics. It can even handle a basketball, though it's no Trae Young. Since we're sorting at such high speeds, we need an inductor to match it. At a throughput of over 1,000 units per hour with a single robot, the Dora inductor can pick an individual item from a pile and singulate it directly to our sorting robots or any other downstream process. Let's talk about palletizing. Dorobot's palletizing solutions, we can pick cases from pallets or conveyors and build completely new pallets based off of the order specifications. With our advanced load planning software, in conjunction with computer vision, we can build mixed SKU pallets that are dense and stable. With our container unloading solution, we've integrated with an ergonomic conveyor system that allows us to process more than 500 cases per hour being offloaded from a truck. This is a solution that we're extremely proud of, as it has enabled the customer to double the number of containers that they can unload, all while eliminating the backbreaking work that usually comes with a job like this. Of course, it's difficult to imagine a smart warehouse without mobile robots rolling around. For example, here you can see our autonomous reach truck that can place and retrieve pallets from varying heights. All of our mobile platforms are equipped with the most advanced sensors and cameras that allow the platforms to integrate seamlessly and safely alongside its human coworkers. When working with us, our customers have seen significant improvements with regard to efficiency, accuracy, and safety. This is only the beginning, and we're thrilled by what we see coming down the conveyor. For more information, you can check out our website, and we're also on LinkedIn. Thank you for your time.
So just as before, if you have any questions for Hayden and Dorabot, just raise your hand, make your way to the center aisle, and I'll start while they're searching. What if some of those early customers and adopters really, you mentioned efficiency, safety, what do you think their pinpoint where you're like, oh, I want that for my warehouse? What do you think their grabbing point is?
So one of the biggest things for them, firstly, was speed. Usually human operators who are sorting packages, they're sorting at a rate around 500 units per hour, but we're doing 1,000 packages per hour. So one of our big customers is DHL. We have 2 robots down in Miami with them. It helps the packages get onto the trucks a lot faster in, say, 2 hours versus 5 hours, and so they can make their routes before they hit rush hour and be done before lunch. The other major pain point is just general labor reliability. So I'm sure we all know that it costs a lot to hire, and it also costs a lot to train these people. So we're training all these people to sort packages, but then next week they don't show up for work. Robots show up for work.
Right, when you see some of the efficiency when it comes to a company adapting Dorabot into their warehouse, has there been like a key item, whether it's the size, the volume of units that they want to adapt Dorabot for? Is it kind of like a versatile approach?
It really depends on the solution. We offer a wide range of configurations for our robots, so it's really depends on what the customer wants. So for DHL, we're providing them a lot of sorting solutions that allow them to just increase their throughput and their reliability. But then we work with a lot of 3PL companies that they like our palletizing solutions. And so, for example, that container unloading solution, that's something that we've customized to integrate that conveyor with our standalone palletizing system that might look different in one warehouse versus another.
And then this is a selfish question for me. What did your garage or dorm room look like as you were first adopting what this thing would ultimately turn into?
It was definitely scrappy. We started with a small robot. I mean, just basically a tabletop robot that was picking up items and moving them around. So we started with a software-first approach. So figuring out how we can manipulate this ready-made robot to move these packages, and then once we started to scale up, find out partners that we could integrate with, then things became a lot more professional. So fewer nuts and bolts lying around. Well, kind of, I guess.
Any other questions out there for Hayden and Dorabot? All right, well, I think you nailed all of them. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for giving a round of applause for Hayden and Dorabot. Next up, we have Bill Vining from Ware. Welcome, Bill. He is the principal sales executive at Ware and has over 20 years of software sales experience in supply chain, e-commerce, and retail. So here he is to demonstrate automating warehouse inventory tracking with drones and AI. See, that time comes fast, right? Bill, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony.
Of course.
So I understand I'm the last presenter before cocktails, so I'm going to move through this quickly. Ware has developed an automated system for managing inventory inside warehouses using a drone, completely autonomous. You don't have to learn how to fly the drone. There's nobody that we don't even give operators joysticks. It sits in a little nest, we call it. It's a little cradle, and you program the drone to fly whenever you want it, whether it be at night or on the weekend. The drone captures the data, sends it to our cloud. We then translate what we've captured and using AI and some other methods, and we were able to provide actionable insights to our clients. This is a complete turnkey solution. We do all the installation. We mount the Nest to the rack. The only thing the customers need to provide is power and a LAN connection for the internet. We're globally deployed. We've got sites all across Europe, as far away as Greece. We've got sites in the US, including some of the major retail names in the US, 3PLs and distributors. And lastly, we use a Skydio drone. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Skydio. They are one of the leaders in drone technology. It's a US-based drone, currently used by the military. It's got 6 collision avoidance sensors on it, in addition to a very high quality camera. So we can fly this thing inside without it impacting fork trucks, other equipment, people, racks, cameras or fans or things that happen to be in the warehouse. The current challenge, you heard some of the panel say that one of the two biggest things that are facing retailers are labor and supply chain. So we touch both of those. Most warehouses today are using manual processes to keep track of their inventory. They have a team, 4 or 5 people in a medium-sized warehouse that work full-time. So reducing the amount of labor that you're using to manage any inaccuracies in your warehouse is absolutely critical. We had one customer that told us that they had $1.5 million of food customer, $1.5 million a year of shrink. What was happening was they would put a pallet or 2 or 3 away in the wrong spot, one a week maybe, human error. That pallet would sit there long enough that it would go out of date, go out of code, they couldn't ship it to their customers. So reduction in shrink, reduction in overtime, reduction in manual processes, plus warehouses are tall and moving people up off the ground is dangerous. So keeping people on the ground, let the drone go fly around your building, at 40 feet off the ground is really what we're solving here. So I talked a little bit about the drone capturing images. We process the data using AI and other advanced programming, and then we highlight this to the users in a number of actionable reports. The really interesting thing is some of our customers are having their warehouse systems being supported. One of them has a team in India. And so now the team in India can log into Ware, compare that with the warehouse management with actual pictures and actionable insights provided by us. I talked about some of the reporting here. A handful of our customers, by the end of the quarter, we should have around 25 customers, significant numbers of warehouses. Medline down there in the bottom, if you're not familiar with them, they're a $14 billion distributor, 45, I believe, warehouses across the US, very large enterprise. I'm gonna play you a video from a grocer in Southern California called Gelson's.
My name is Robert Langley. I'm the Warehouse Operations Manager for Gelson's Markets Distribution Center in Santa Fe Springs, California. Gelson's is recognized as one of the nation's premier supermarket chains in the state of California. It is known for its superior produce, high-quality goods, and excellent customer service. At Gelson's, we really pride ourselves on keeping our store shelves stocked for our customers. Our distribution center is located in Santa Fe Springs, California, and we service all 27 Gelson's stores in Southern California. We've been a Ware customer for over a year now, and we initially started with one manual drone and have since expanded to 4 fully autonomous drones on nests because of the great results we've seen from software and technology. We store a variety of goods here at Gelson's, from perishable produce to alcohol, so we have limited time to recover inventory if it's lost or misplaced. Ware's technology enables us to increase the frequency of inventory tracking and verification. The more we can do this, the better our accuracy and product integrity, which trickles all the way down to every one of our customers. Like any warehouse, we were plagued with operator errors. Some of our operators would scan pallets into the wrong location, scan the wrong label. As a result, we'd lose pallets in the rack. With Ware, we're now able to track down those pallets very quickly and get them out to the stores before they go out of code. Before Ware came along in our warehouse, we could typically only count the entire warehouse twice a year manually. Now we have the ability to cycle through inventory verification at a much quicker rate. We also have a much better chance of finding and fixing inventory issues before our perishable product becomes expired or unsellable. The Ware technology demonstrated its value within weeks of being installed at our facility. It continues to enable our employees to quickly find missing or incorrectly located payloads. Rather than manually counting pallets themselves, employees use Ware Cloud software to view images the drones capture. Then they review the issues and exceptions that arise and investigate it. The Ware technology also helped us find over $100,000 of misplaced inventory in the first 90 days. After spending over 20 years in warehousing, Ware stands out to me as one of the most innovative technologies I've ever experienced. The ease of use and quick ROI made Ware a no-brainer for our operation.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you again. I love that idea so much, Bill. Wow. Just like before, if any of you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll make our way down to the aisle. I see one coming up here. But while he's getting to that, I mean, do companies look at Ware as just like a gift from heaven? Because you're using essentially AI drones to automate warehouse tracking of inventory. See, I got it that time.
There you go.
I mean, what have been some of the pain points when it comes to showing this product to mass markets?
Well, it's new, so we go into a big enterprise and we have to prove to them that it works.
Right.
So we typically go and install one in a warehouse, and then they call us and say, yeah, this works great. We need 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 more. And big enterprises generally roll things out, over time. So it's not like we're going to be able to go to 40 Medline warehouses next year, right? So it'll take some time to start rolling these things out in big enterprises, but we're starting to see the adoption, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of reduce, reuse, and recycle, and to see things, especially perishable products,
Right.
not go to waste. I mean, that's huge for the environment.
Yeah.
So we have our first question up here.
Hey, my name is Gary. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm going to sneak in 2 questions. So the first question is, I work at Chick-fil-A, so I was very excited that you're in a grocery because when we have looked into technology like this, temperature restrictions are always an issue, and obviously we move cold food. So I think my first question is, what are your temperature restrictions for your drone? And the second question I'd love to sneak in is, do you feel that in your current roadmap and how you partner with companies, you would prefer or is better that those companies are vertically integrated? So, our supply chain, we partner with who the partners out there in the DC world, and it's harder for us to enforce, how they structure their DC in order for your drones to be able to fly around and look for inventory. So those are my 2 questions.
Yeah, great questions. I get asked the question, can we fly the drone in the freezer? Because nobody wants to work in the freezer. The drone will operate in a chilled environment, no problem. You want to leave it in the chilled environment, not move it back and forth because there's issues with condensation. We can take the drone. The drone actually gets really hot. It's got a giant graphics card in it. So the colder temperatures is good for it. We wouldn't want any of the sensors or the lenses to freeze up, so the way we would do it would be without a nest. We would just have to launch it manually in the freezer. I don't know how much freezer product. I thought Chick-fil-A was fresh, right? Favorite, one of my favorite restaurants. But so that's the first question. The second one around vertical integration is, we spend a lot of time in every warehouse seems to be operated differently in terms of the number of shifts they have, in terms of the number of employees, how they rack the place. So one of the things we'll do is we'll sit down and talk about your operation, see how this fits in. Some of our customers want to fly this thing at lunch. Some of them want to fly it at night. Some of them want to fly on the weekends. So it really just depends on how your warehouse operates and what your goals are.
Feel free to make your hands raised for any other questions for Bill here. So I'm going to follow up, though, speaking on your timelines there. Some people want to fly it at certain points a day. What is the lifeline as far as when this thing needs to recharge, as far as utilization for the next day?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So the battery life is about 20 minutes. So it can take off and fly. Depending on how we've mapped out the warehouse, you're going to get between 60 and 120, 125 bays. So a bay is, think of a pallet location if you saw the video. So if you've got one pallet in there, that would be one scan. If you've got cases in there, we would scan all the cases. We're doing some work with Amazon where we're getting something like 200 scans per bay because we're scanning shoe boxes. So in that 20-minute flight, you're going to scan how many ever scans you get. The thing comes back to the nest. It has to cool down. And then it charges up, and you download the data. So somebody out in the hallway asked me what some of our issues are, and one of the issues is that warehouses are hot.
Yeah.
So this thing gets hot, so it's got to land and cool down. So we're actually working on some ways to cool it and cool the battery, and so, but so the ultimate answer of what the cycle time and the capacity is like, how hot's your warehouse? Right, so it'll be different in the winter and different in the summer, especially in Florida and Texas.
And then that downtime from charge to rebooting, what's that like? What's that time?
So it takes about 30 minutes to recharge, and it depends how hot it is on how long it takes to cool down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Bill.
Thank
Give
you.
it up for Aware one more time. Huge props to each and every one of these startups. The future looks bright, and I can't wait just to see what all this adoption for just retail at large looks like. Can we all give them one more round of applause for every one of our startups joining us today? Really great demos. Thank you all so much for giving us your visions of retail's future. And all right, everybody, that concludes this discussion and demonstration portion of the Spark by Go Studio Startup Demo Day in partnership with Plug and Play. If you all would like to learn a little bit more about Go Studio or Plug and Play's upcoming events, go follow them on social media, including LinkedIn. But it has been an honor to serve all of you as your master of ceremonies for this incredible journey into the future of retail. Go Studio and Plug and Play appreciate you all for coming out tonight, and we hope Demo Day has sparked some ideas that will have an impact on your business for the future. Thank you all again so much for showing out. Thank you all for watching online over the internet. Good night, everybody. Cheers.